Hello, everybody, again. Welcome to the second or possibly third podcast, depending on how the previous one is split up. So here with Nick Buckley again, presidential candidate.
Thank you. I'm looking at words.
Mayoral candidate for Manchester.
Greater Manchester.
Greater Manchester. Apologies, Nick. And running against Andy Burnham. I was actually reading your stats, and you got something like 5% of the vote last time. Something quite substantial.
It wasn't as high as that. It was about 3 or something.
3.
It wasn't 5 because I didn't get my deposit back.
All right.
But I did get 19,000 votes.
That's a lot.
Which I thought was a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot.
For nobody.
Yeah.
You only joined the campaign 8 weeks before the election.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So here with Nick again, and we're talking about things maybe closer to home for you, the gentle listener. And I think in the last conversation we covered a lot of stuff, and maybe we went a little bit abstract towards the end. So I'd like to try and retain the ideas a bit closer to home. And so yeah, so we're going to have a chat about a few things this time. So if I could start, Nick. So there was an article. I hate to say it, I think it's probably in the Telegraph, but there was an article by an MP, and I can't remember which party he was from, and he was saying what he's seeing in the political landscape at the moment. He thinks there's a gap. There's a gap for somebody who will actually address the issues, the real issues that people have in life, and not the elite list of things that the politicians in Westminster, and in that I will include people like Richard Tice and Nigel Farage, who, whilst they are, they are to some extent disruptors, they have become part of the mainstream as well in their process. So, and what he was saying, and if you forgive me, I'll just read from the list because it really struck a chord with me. He said their list of grievances, and this is the British people, the voting public. Their list of grievances is long: huge utility bills, expensive groceries, rising rents and mortgages, endless waits for GP appointments, which is incredibly true, decaying high streets, massive welfare bills, high taxes, unfathomable sentencing in courtrooms, and I guess that's references to things like the hate crimes and things like that, and widespread homelessness. Well, we've talked about homelessness before, and of course, not controversial subject because it's not controversial, high levels of immigration, the endless arrival of small boats, housing of refugees and asylum seekers in apparently smart hotels. And that bit about the housing of asylum seekers hotels, I recall in the last 2 years I've gone to meetings, business meetings, I've agreed to meet somebody at a hotel where I've gone before to have a coffee, I've turned up, there's cones across the front, I've rung up or spoken to somebody there, we're housing asylum seekers here. This is in the north because they seem to send a lot into the north. Yeah. To the northern cities around Manchester and things like that as well. So those issues there that I just listed, those are really the issues that people are concerned about. The people that I talk to on a daily basis, and I travel around the country with our businesses, and I'll speak to the people, and these are the issues they've got. It's life is hard at the moment because of the increase in prices and things like that. Groceries a lot more. I went to the grocery the other day and bought a couple of things. Literally, quarter of a basket. It was like £22, and I was quite shocked because I don't normally do that much shopping, but I was shocked. So do you think this guy? And forgive me for not having his name. Do you think he's right that we are missing somebody? And arguably that person might be what's called now, because of course they now use the phrase populist, don't they? So populist means, as far as I can see from the media, fascist. You're a fascist if you're a populist. But actually, to me, what a populist is somebody who is popular with the people. The people vote for them because they're saying things that the people can relate to.
The people who use the phrase populist, what they really mean is we have disdain for the average person.
Yes.
So that's what popularism is. It means being popular, people liking your policies. But if you've got the wrong policies, and those idiots are still going to vote for you, like Brexit, Brexit for them was the wrong decision.
Yes.
Hence why it was a populistic vote.
Yeah.
And that's what that word means now. It just means the idiots, who are the
Yeah.
vast majority of people, we can't have them having their way.
Yes. And you may not, or you probably do know this, but I think that is a popular view across a lot of middle class, upper middle class people. A disdain for what I call, and I don't use the expression working class. I use the expression a working man. And I consider myself a working man.
Yeah. Working class is meaningless.
Yeah, working class is meaningless, but there are working men.
Yeah.
I consider myself a working man. I work hard, and I work for that reason. And they seem to have a and I remember being at a party, talking to a lawyer, and this is a bright guy, partner of highly educated, and he actually said to me, I don't think the working class should have the vote. That's what and I said, I said to this guy, can you actually hear what you just said? And he didn't compute that I was shocked by what he said, or that what he said was actually inappropriate. But I think there are a lot of people, the elites we call them, don't we?
Yeah.
Who seem to have lost touch with the reality of what life is about, who seem to believe that there's a certain, what did Hillary Clinton call them? The despicables. The deplorables. And the deplorables. And they believe those people should not have, and their decisions are incorrect, like Brexit or whatever, and they call the people they vote for populists, don't they? But are we missing in this country that person?
We are. I actually thought it was going to be Boris Johnson in 2019. He had the charisma, he had the PR, he was saying all the right things, and he was the worst Prime Minister in my lifetime. He oversold everything. He was basically an idiot. He just wanted to be PM, and he became PM, and job was a good one for him. That was it. He messed up completely everything he did. He missed a great opportunity because he had an 80-seat majority. He could have been a dictator for the years he was in power, but he blew it all away. We need someone who is a conviction politician. That's what we need. And the closest we've had of that for a long time was Jeremy Corbyn. I never would have voted for the man, and I disagree with all his policies never enough, but at least he was a conviction politician. He knew what he stood for. He wasn't for bending and changing. He told us all what he was going to do with the country and the direction of travel, and we all said no thank you and didn't vote him in. But everybody else we seem to have, I come to this conclusion, our politicians now, and have been for a long time, are middle managers. Because we've been part of the EU, and the EU made all our laws and sent us laws and directives, we didn't need politicians and leaders. We needed middle managers to implement what we were told to do. And that's why our class of politicians are so low, so uneducated, so ill-advised, because they're just middle managers, and lots of middle managers are incompetent. Now we've left the EU, I'm hoping over this next decade we're going to get new people coming into politics, wanting to be elected, like me as mayor. And they will have their own thoughts and feelings and directions, and we're not having to look at the EU going, what can I do and what can't I do? What are they going to make me do? We've got a blank plate now to do what we wish to do. And we need some new leaders coming through who are looking, who first of all, who love the country. Because I challenge quite a lot of the politicians who actually don't love our country. I'm not saying they hate it, but they don't love the country. They're not patriots. They're career politicians. Just because you work at Asda doesn't mean you love Asda. And just because they work in Westminster doesn't mean they love the UK. We need some more patriots in there who will make the tough decisions for the country, who will be unpopular, who may lose their jobs because of it, but they will lose their jobs knowing, like, my country's a better place today than it was 5 years ago when I went into Parliament and I lost my job. No, I'm a patriot. I didn't care about me and my job. I cared about the future of the country. And the decisions lots of people have to make in politics is we need a lot more long-term choices, long-term decisions. Because at the moment, we make decisions that are good for the political cycle, which is always about 3-4 years. You can't change anything in 3-4 years. All you can do in 3-4 years is look like you're trying to reduce a problem or end a problem.
Yeah.
But that's what you're doing, is looking like you're doing it. It's having no effect on the problem, but politically and PR and the press, it looks like you're doing something. That's why we don't solve problems anymore, because to solve a problem, especially our social problems, it'll take 10, 20, 30 years. We need to put a comprehensive plan in place that's sensible, so your opposition, when they come into government, won't throw it out because they agree with it as well. And we need to start chipping away at some of our problems. When was the last time, as a country, we solved a problem?
But it isn't then what the answer or the argument around what you just said then is? And I agree with you. I think you can't fix something in 4 or 5 years, and there's all this short-termism going on. The answer is a longer period of time. But isn't that why dictators and totalitarian environments come into play? Because you made a very good point about Boris Johnson. With an 80-seat majority, if he played it right, he could have been there for 10 years and made massive, great change to this country. Now, if somebody like Johnson comes along again, gets that kind of level of support and majority in Parliament or whatever our democratic process is at that time, is there a chance they might become is that the problem? Is that why this doesn't happen? Because we're not looking for that kind of rule in this country.
Our system isn't set up for dictators. There's always checks and balances, as many of our politicians find out, and hence why they can't send people to Rwanda. There's checks and balances along the way, and the courts have the final say on that. We need several things to happen. First of all, we need to fix the foundations of our political system. And for me, that would be pulling out of the ECHR, European Court of Human Rights, pulling out the United Nations Convention of Refugees. It's not fit for purpose anymore. It was designed for after the Second World War, when we had millions of people moving across Europe. There's lots of things we need to end, those sort of international agreements. Then we need, and I'm not for proportional representation either. I'm quite happy with first past the post. It gives us one direction, and it stops fringe elements having a big say on who runs the country. But we need to look at those things to pull out of, and then we need to come up with a plan of what the people want. And we don't have that at the moment because of the EU and because of our weak politicians. But there will be leaders coming through who will understand what the public want, and will then start saying the things that resonate with people.
But why are we not seeing those people now? Or are they out there saying these things?
We've only just left the EU. So it's going to take a decade for the politicians we have now to die out and leave and not get elected, and new people who have not been in politics before to start coming through. Because you know yourself, running businesses, when you've got a poor environment, a work environment in a business, it takes time to get rid of the trouble causers and the incompetent managers and start replacing them. And that can take several years to do that before you create a much more productive, positive environment in that business to turn it around. That's what we need to do with our politics. This ain't going to happen overnight, because the politicians we have at the moment have been infected with this virus of short-termism, of keeping your party happy. They believe we still get, we've got a Tory MP a couple of days ago resigned because we're giving contracts to drill in the North Sea oil.
The climate change.
And this is going to kill the world. It's like, how did he ever become a Conservative MP?
Yes.
That's the question we need to ask. So and he's one of the fringe elements, so he's going to go. But even the moderates in the Tories at the moment are not even Tory. They're not Conservatives. They're basically a new breed of Blairites. That's all they are. So hence why I want the Tories to be wiped out in the next election, so they can start 5 years of rebuilding, finding out who they are, what they want, who they represent, and get some policies for that and start growing again. Because at the moment, they try to be Blairites. They try to be everything to everybody, and they end up being nothing to no one. And you look at some of their policies, and I think there's some easy wins there, but those people are not stupid. If they were easy wins, they would do them. They just know they're not easy wins because the Tory party is not a Tory party. It's not full of Conservatives.
So you've got the Tory party that's got all, as you say, there's now a very broad spectrum in there, and they're tearing themselves apart. You've got Labour with Keir Starmer,
Yeah.
and I think the same thing is in place there, although Keir Starmer has actually shown more backbone recently than normal. But the question I want to ask you, and you're talking about, again, we're talking in an abstract manner. If I'm using an example here. I, as a working man in Wolverhampton, for example, my food, I get I get £15 an hour, basic pay. It's above minimum wage, but still not great. So in an average week, I'll make 15 times £40, and then so I've got my take-home pay. I'm finding it very hard to feed myself and my family. Food has gone up by X percentage. When my kid's sick, I can't get them into hospital. I'll take my child to, I've got 3 young children, I'll take my child to the hospital A&E. We're not seen for 9 hours. And I haven't got the time.
Ambulances can take days.
Ambulances can take days.
You phone up an ambulance now, they tell you, can you put that person in your car? That's what you're told now because there's no ambulances.
I'm white, I'm nearly middle-aged, and I'm being told on a daily basis I'm a racist, and that I'm worthless, and I've got I'm taken into courses at work to be told how shit I am, basically. My car is now being charged for the fact it's an old diesel car, because I can't afford a new car. So it's an old petrol car, not diesel car. I'm now getting, this isn't happening in Wolverhampton, but it is happening. And in addition to that, if I'm in a hurry, they've now reduced the zones to 20 miles an hour. They're going on about climate change to me and all that. I really don't give a stuff about that, because I'm trying to live. I'm trying to live in this environment. My electricity bill's gone up, my gas bill's gone up as well. What can you do for? Who do I vote for to stop this insanity? Because life is incredibly hard. There's even I'm now finding myself not in all those things happening as well, but I also can't speak my mind. When I go out in the pub, I've got to keep my voice down when I talk about certain subjects, because if I express an opinion...
Well, our friend had the police phoned on in a pub in Trafford.
That's right, correct. Rob, yes, he did.
Police turned up. Someone didn't like your conversation about Trump and 9/11 and da-da-da. The police turned up. Police don't turn up to burglaries. And turned up to a conversation in a pub, a private conversation between friends having a chat and a pint. So
So, and not only do I have to keep my voice down in the pub because I can't talk about certain things, but when my house was burgled 2 weeks ago, nobody turned up. I've had no reputation, and I found out, looking at my local police statistics, that 98% of burglaries are unsolved in this area. The stabbings going on the streets. I'm afraid to let my kids out at night.
It's a horrendous picture you're painting. It's true.
This is a horrendous picture, but this is real.
It's true.
I see this. So I'm that person.
What do you do?
What the hell do I do? Who do I vote for? Who's gonna? And I'm paying my tax, by the way. I'm paying my tax. It's probably 30 to 40% of my salary goes in tax, and I'm paying VAT. I'm paying my tax on my petrol. All that. So what the hell do I do?
The advice to me, the first bit's bad news. There isn't any quick fixes.
I'm done.
There isn't any quick fixes. We need to understand the nature of the problem, and the problem is politics. Who runs politics? They're called politicians. What do politicians want? Politicians want votes. So we need to start thinking about how do we get politicians to start wanting my vote. And what we need to do is that gentleman in Wolverhampton needs to start off with his local council. Who's standing for council? Don't vote Labour, don't vote Tory. Start voting for one of the independents or one of the very small parties. And if enough people start voting for those parties at local elections, the big parties, who always win the election, the big parties will go, oh, I didn't win that seat as a Tory, but if I could add on the vote that independent got onto my vote, I would have won. Look what his policies were. Oh, I can steal them. Then look at your MP votes. Start not voting for the main parties, do the same thing again. Vote for someone who's saying things you like, but who are not in the parties. And other professional career politicians will start looking, look at what independents are getting, look at what those small parties are getting, and they will steal those policies. And just like we've got into this mess now with this woke nonsense and DEI and all that, that all happened because politicians were looking at what these activist groups were doing and who was voting for them. And if I take that on, I'll get those votes. We need to play them at their game. Always remember that politician only wants your vote. The vast majority of politicians don't even agree with the policies they're spouting. Most Tory MPs don't agree with Tory policy. Same with Labour MPs. They don't agree with the Labour policy. All they want is votes to be in power. That's the nature of the game. That's the nature of the beast. We need to understand the nature of the beast. Once we understand that vote to them is all they want of us, then if we can get enough people to agree with us, we can get them to do what we want them to do. The biggest trick, the biggest con the elite have pulled in this country over my lifetime was convincing the poor that their vote doesn't matter.
And how did they do that?
I don't know how they did it. Hence why the poor people don't vote. At the last mayor election, only 1 in 3 people voted. At local elections, it's normally 1 in 5 people vote. And in general elections, it's normally 2 out of 3 people vote. Those people who don't vote could change the direction of the country just by themselves if they gang together because their votes are significant. But they believe, or they've been told, or it's apathy, or it's just being stupid, that their vote doesn't matter. People died for us to have to vote. And they don't vote anymore because they think it makes no difference. And I tell them all the time, it does make a difference. Look at Brexit.
Yeah.
It was only the poor people, the average people, the working man. They voted for Brexit. No one else did. The professionals didn't, the educated didn't, the people who run our organisations and our government and most of our politicians didn't want this. But because we mobilised, we got what we wanted.
And how did that happen? How were those people mobilised to vote for Brexit?
It was, part of it was a valve to let steam off because immigration was increasing, people were feeling more and more unhappy. They knew they couldn't talk about immigration because they get called racist, even though I'm allowed to talk about it. And that vote gave people an opportunity to have a say, and they took it. They let the steam out the valve, and then they all went back to normal. Brexit's not perfect. We got a pretty crappy deal. Our politicians just let us down getting the deal we got, but I'd rather be out with a crappy deal than in with. So we at least got what I wanted, which was out. It will take some natural leaders, some natural people with good communication skills, with a belief in the country. That's why Boris Johnson won in 2019. It was his pro-British stance. We're an amazing country. We're the only country in the world with the word great in its title because we are great. We created the Industrial Revolution. We ran the biggest empire the world has ever known. We created the modern world. Look at the scientists who changed the world, they're nearly all British.
Yeah.
Look at the inventions, look at what we've done. Look at the laws that are around the world, and it's nearly all based on British English common law. Look at our colonies who now run the world, the Americas, Canada, New Zealand. Look at one of the most successful countries in the world, Singapore, Hong Kong, British colonies. So we've done, and we did some bad things, but we're human. We'll do good things, do bad things. But overall, this little tiny island has changed this world for the better, this planet for the better. And when the histories wrote about this world in a couple of thousand years, the number one country mentioned will be the UK, will be Great Britain. And we need to talk about that more. We need to big ourselves up. We need to talk about the things we can do in the future, the inventions we're making now. Graphene was created, invented or discovered in Manchester. That's going to change the world. We still have some really intelligent people. And it's not because we're genetically more intelligent than other people in other countries and other races. It's because our country is set up like this. Our country is set up used to value education. We had the amazing universities. We had the way that people were given the opportunity to experiment, to do things you couldn't do in other countries, to push the boundaries, to push ideas, to talk about things that were heretical somewhere else where you'd get killed. And a lot of our ideas in this country turned out to be wrong and didn't get anywhere. But it's only until you allow people to push those boundaries, that one or two people discover something amazing to change the world, to benefit the world. And we need leaders who start talking about this. We need our education systems, our state schools, to be talking about history and understanding our history, where we came from, what we did to change the world. So British students are leaving school proud. You know, we're meeting journalists and holiday fights over sunbeds, and we're going, well, that's fine, but do you know what our scientists did? You know, how much better we are than you, in a jokey sort of way. But that creates competition, and we've lost all that now. The UK seems to be now an international hotel. All we are is somewhere to lay your head.
Yes.
And when we use hotels, we treat them quite poorly, because we pay for someone to clean up after us. We don't care the longevity of the hotel. We want to stay once, twice. I don't care if this is in business in 4 years from now. We need to start treating the UK as a home. And when you live in a home, you respect it. And it's not just about you living in that home. It's the bricks and mortar. It's about your neighbours. It's about your community, because I'm here forever. If our country suddenly had an economic breakdown, millions of people would leave this country. Most of them would be new arrivals. Well, I came here for a good life. Shit here now. I go to another country. They've not bought into this country. Some people have. But honestly, if this country failed tomorrow, millions of people would leave to find somewhere better to live.
But I think people are starting to feel that way now anyway. I think the things that made the country attractive just 20 years ago are no longer there now. And I always say when we talk about this, you know, and this just may be an old fart talking, but when I think about the 80s and 90s, everything seemed possible then. And it seemed a very open, safe and a proud society.
Part of that will be rose-tinted spectacles.
Yeah, part of that is rose-tinted spectacles. But my son has a friend who, same age, he's mid to late 20s, who's gone to live in Dubai. And Dubai, you know, I don't know if you've been, I've been a couple of times. And it's very hot. It's expensive.
Soulless.
Soulless. But this young guy has said he doesn't want to come back to England. He came back for Christmas and he said, I'm missing Dubai, I want to go back. Because life there, even though it is soulless, the very things that are starting to weigh this character in Wolverhampton down don't exist there. You know, there's a good health service, there's low crime, you know, it's an egalitarian society apart from the actual native Dubai, you know, people, you know, are rewarded for working there basically, and it has a lot of the hallmarks, and it's a strange thing to hear that I'm saying that Dubai now has facets to it that are better than the UK, but I think a lot of people are seeing that now. They're actually saying, why am I staying here? I mean, I love England and I love Britain, and I can't ever envisage being somewhere else, but I do find myself like the man in Wolverhampton questioning what actually I'm getting here. Because I was in the car the other day, driving back with my wife, and I was ruminating, and I think you said in our last episode, you know, tax is legalised theft, and that's actually a common philosophical discussion, that the tax is theft thing. It's quite you know, it's raised. I only started thinking about it a couple of years ago, but I was driving along and I just said, well, what do I get for my tax? For all the tax I pay? I think I just paid a big tax bill or something. I said, what do I get for the tax that I pay? And she said, well, the roads. And I said, no, I pay road tax for that. I've got my road tax on my car, I pay that. Well, National Health Service. And I said, well, you can't get treatment. You have to go private to get treatment. I saw how the NHS treated my wife's mother when she died during COVID. Horrific. The treatment was just horrific. So what else? Oh, well, you know, the street sweepers, the street lights, that's the local council tax I'm paying. So I said, what am I benefiting from personally from the tax? And we were both stumped. We couldn't come up with any real answers. Education. That was the one thing. Education for our children. But our children are grown up now. But that is something you do get. You do get your education for your children. But
outside, other things would be law and order, so police, fire service, National Army.
Yes, yeah. Law and order.
But out of those things, you'd be going anything else. I've no idea.
Yeah. And that's the bit, that people are starting to question now. Because we say rose-tinted spectacles for the 80s and 90s, but I can tell you in the 80s and 90s, if you went to hospital, you get seen.
Yeah.
If you went to your GP, you could go the next day.
Yeah.
I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
The health service was functioning then to a great extent. And I don't, and it's not about more taxes. I don't think it is about more taxes.
It's not.
Because the man from Wolverhampton, the one who has seen the immigrants in the local hotel, will know that £7 million a day is being spent housing those guys. How much money are we sending to Ukraine, and all those other things as well. It's kind of, this is why you look at the UK now and think, why am I here?
And what's going to happen is what's happened to California is
people are leaving California.
People are leaving, and who leave? The rich people, because they can afford to leave. So then you lose all those taxes. So what does California have to do? Put up taxes more to cover the losses in taxes, which makes more people leave. They're in a vicious cycle of going to go bankrupt, and that's what we're doing to this country by taxing people far too much all the time, because the people who can afford to leave and set a life up somewhere else, somewhere like Dubai with no tax, will leave, and then we've lost all those taxes. And we've lost those individuals.
Sorry, that was another major attraction.
Dubai.
Zero tax. Things are a little bit expensive. Although saying that, you can live very handsomely on a relatively less, because of course something like 80% of the people there are Indians from India. They live very cheaply. They have their own environments, and so you can live cheaply in Dubai as well. But if you're earning a lot of money, you don't get any tax, and you can live that life. But to think here in 2024, I'm saying Dubai is an attractive place. I'm shocked at myself that I'm saying that, but I get it.
I get people all the time telling me they either want to move to America or they want to go to Eastern Europe.
Yes,
because of the culture. There more, and it surprises me when people, I've got family members telling me this. Don't mean they're going to do it, might not afford to do it, but that's what for them to tell me they want to do it, it's like absolutely crazy when you live in the UK. Now we're bringing this on ourselves. So taxation, our taxes are too high, and we take far too much tax off people, and we expect the state to do everything. That's why we keep taking tax off people. Now, I recommend people read a book by George Orwell, Road to Wigampi. Poverty in the North was horrendous 100 years ago, absolutely horrendous. That would have been my life 100 years ago. And when you read how people lived, it's like, God, we need a welfare state. We need to make sure a bit of bad luck or an injury doesn't mean you hit rock bottom and you can never get out of rock bottom ever again. We need to avoid that, which we did with the welfare state. So I want a welfare state. But our welfare state now has expanded and does things it was never meant to do. Welfare state was always about a safety net. It's now a hammock. You can quite comfortably lie in your welfare state now for all your life, and you will have a very decent quality of life. And I've got loads of examples of how that's true. And then the welfare state started doing something it shouldn't have done, which was handouts. The welfare state should be a hand-up service. You've fallen in hard times, that's fine. Here's some help, you need to do these things to get yourself back up, but we're going to support you doing those things. It now says, you've fallen in hard times, stay there, here's some money, don't cause us any problems. That's what unemployment benefit basically is now, all these benefits. It's about telling people, don't complain, because we're going to do nothing about your complaints. Here's some money, shut up, because your problems are too hard for us to tackle. You're, disabled, you can't, you're uneducated, you can't find a job. And we don't care what your problem is. We just want you to go away. We'll pay you to shut up. That's a problem off our checklist now. But that's costing us billions and billions of pounds. Not only that, we're ensuring those people don't reach their potential and don't have the quality of life they should have. That some risk now, we talk about risk as if it's a bad thing. Risk in itself isn't a bad thing. Risk leads to success. It can lead to failure. But failure isn't just failure. Failure is a way of learning what not to do next time. And you take that lesson and you take another risk and you might hit success next time. So we need people to take more risk, but we keep turning to national government and councils going, you need to look after me. We got to a stage where on benefits, we weren't giving people their rent money, we were paying their rent directly for them. And I understand why, because we didn't trust them not to spend on alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
But how do you expect that person ever to develop that responsibility to go get a job when we don't even trust them to pay their own rent with the money the government's giving them? So then we changed that. We started giving people all their benefits in one go, saying that you need to pay your rent, you need to pay your council tax. And the vast majority of people coped with it and did it, but we're preparing them for working life. And instead of giving people benefits every fortnight, we started giving people benefits every month. Because when you get a job, you get your money monthly. And you need to know how to budget for that whole month while you're on benefits. So when you get a job, you're in that habit of budgeting for a month and we're not setting them up for failure.
Yeah.
And if we keep relying on the state to solve our problems, nothing's ever going to improve. We used to have a welfare state before our welfare state. It was called family. And the best thing about family is they would hold you accountable. So you become unemployed, you not come round here 2 days a week and and we'll feed you and the kids and stuff like that while you're looking for work. And they would hold you accountable. If you didn't do and you weren't doing what they wanted you to do to get a job, well, they stopped their welfare for you because no, we're not helping you anymore, like you're not helping yourself. And your family would do those things because they loved you. And your family want the best for you because they love you. And sometimes it's tough love. The state never loves you. The state's never trying to do the best thing for you. The state is always trying to do the best thing for politicians. You're just a number to the state. So we started removing responsibility of families and giving it more and more to the state to look after us. And that's a huge problem. And all this costs money. And politicians have got into the habit of every time you have a problem now, rather than fixing it, throw money at it. Do you know why? It's not my money. My pension's sorted. And like Rishi Sunak, I'm going to America when I'm not Prime Minister anymore. I'm not living here.
Yeah.
You know, his grandparents were born in India. They moved to Africa. His parents were born in Africa. They moved to the UK. He was born in the UK. And he intends to go to America. His family have no connections anywhere.
Yeah.
They will just go to the next best place for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not criticising them. To
No,
some
I mean, that's
extent.
not to be criticised. No.
That's their choice.
Yeah.
I think it's the wrong choice to have.
Yeah.
But we've got a Prime Minister who has no intentions of staying in this country. And he's the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And
Although he wasn't voted in, was he? So
he was voted no one's ever voted in as Prime Minister
Yeah.
because you vote for your local MPs.
Yeah.
But through the system we've got, he became Prime Minister. But throwing money at problems all the time. You know, we're still donating 0.5% of our gross national product to foreign aid. 0.5% a year.
Yeah.
It used to be 0.7, it's now 0.5, I believe.
Yeah.
All that should go. We're giving money to an unwinnable war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak announced a couple of months ago the hundreds of millions is giving to foreign countries to help them reduce their net zero. It's like, how much money can you give out? And then you talk about 7 million a day in hotel bills for criminals who break into the country.
Correct.
We have a law on the
Yeah.
statute books
Yeah.
for people who enter the country illegally. It's an offence.
Yeah.
They're criminals, and we put them up in hotels.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the reason why we do all this, and the reason why you're paying far too much tax, is because that's how we solve problems in our country now.
Just throw money at it.
We just throw money at it because no one's got the backbone, the intelligence, or the balls to take on the problem and fix it for good.
Yeah.
Because that takes hard work and dedication.
And how much of that money we're paying, that tax, the man in Wolverhampton, how much of that is going to him to help him in
Hardly
his
anything.
life?
Hardly anything.
I think that's right. I think hardly anything. And that's
Scary
why-
bit is the tax we're paying isn't even all the money we're spending. We're still borrowing money every year.
Yes,
Because what we're
yeah.
taking off everybody else still isn't enough to pay for the crap we're spending it on.
Yeah.
So we're going in more and more and more debt
Yeah.
that our grandchildren will have to pay back.
And just talking about money and spending money and allocating money, one of the big issues now that we see on a daily basis, bombarded with on a daily basis, is climate change, CO2, electric cars, and we are spending billions on that as well, subsidising that, pumping money into something that, you know, in my view is, rather than let it take its natural course, and I think there is a place for electric cars and all that sort of thing, but we as a country contribute, of the actual man-made CO2, we contribute less than 1% of that. And that 1% is 1% of a far bigger percentage of total CO2. So why are we doing that? Why are we trying to lead the way there? We were the only country for a while to say that we were going to be net zero by, was it 2050? I don't know.
Something like that,
and then we've actually changed that now. So we were going to go all electric by 2030. Now it's 2035. So there's another 5 years.
Yeah, and that'll get pushed back and pushed back.
But why are we doing that?
We don't have leaders, we have middle managers. And middle managers get told by their chief execs what you're pushing. And our chief execs are the EU, WEF, and the UN. Our middle managers are always being told by their chief execs what you're pushing.
Yeah. So these super elites are saying this is the way to go. Our middle managers are saying we're going to try and comply with that.
Yep.
I mean, why don't we just say we're not coming to COP26 or whatever it is? We're actually going to use the money that we have here to spend on our people to make sure they have good lives.
That's what a leader would do.
Yes.
A middle manager is always looking up for direction.
Yeah.
A leader looks down.
Yeah.
What's good for the people below him.
Yeah.
A middle manager always looks up about to be told what to do next.
So, we go full circle to the very beginning of this conversation. There are people who understand. Well, you and I are talking now. We understand that. You know what I'm pretty sure what we're saying now would appeal to the man in Wolverhampton. Why is nobody saying it? Why is there nobody there and people saying, "Oh, this guy is total sense. I'm going to go to his presentation." I mean, there are characters around. There are people like Jordan Peterson and. You know, I'm trying to think of it. I mean, I'm going to use a crazy example here, which is Andrew Tate. But somebody like Andrew Tate says things that a lot of young men relate to, understand, and has a massive following as a result. But those figures that we just talked about there, Peterson, Tate, who else am I thinking of? Those characters are marginalised. Farage, they're marginalised, and they're called crackpots, and they're called, you know, whatever it might be. Why is there not somebody coming through, coming back to it again, who is saying these things, who appears sensible, who is making sense?
There will be. They exist now. We've just not heard of them.
Right.
So they're coming through the ranks. They're having these conversations. They'll be standing for Parliament or they'll be standing in local councils. But because their message is unwanted at the moment, they get no promotion. So the press won't be picking them up.
Yeah.
We're not interested in this. We're on a tanker, super tanker. It takes years to turn a super tanker. So it's going to take many years for this to become mainstream. But it will become mainstream. And it becomes mainstream, a bit like my campaign now for Mayor of Greater Manchester. So talk about taxes, what I'm promising is if I'm Mayor, the Mayor has a say over council tax in Greater Manchester. Most of it is the council, so I can't do anything about that. But he sets the increase for the police and fire authority. That'll be frozen, if not reduced. And then you have a mayor's precept, which is his own money that he takes to spend his pet projects. I'll be looking at trying to reduce that down to zero, because I'm just saying to people, we take enough money off you as it is. I'm not as mayor going to be taking money off you, because the things I want to do, I will fund through the reduction of waste and incompetence. If we want to improve the police, we want more police officers, of course we do. But how we'll do that is I'll be speaking to the Chief Constable, if elected mayor, going, right, give me a list of all your incompetent officers, senior and junior. Who are the ones you'd like to fire because they're incompetent? And we've got evidence on that we can legally fire. But at the moment, you're too afraid to fire them because of everything else. Right, let's sack them all. And we'll go to court on some of them if they don't like it. I've got police officers contacting me saying, if we could sack 10-20% of the police force in Greater Manchester and not replace them, their productivity would go up. Because they're saying, you don't understand, some of these officers are that bad. They're saying, We've got officers going around clearing up their messes all the time. If we didn't have those officers messing up, those other officers would be working on the streets doing stuff. We've got officers who won't attend jobs on their own because they're afraid. So you've got to put them in double crews all the time. They're saying 20% saying you could get rid of, and productivity would go up in the police. Now, I'm saying let's sack those officers, but let's then not keep the money. Let's recruit them some more officers. I'm going to be increasing the competency on the recruitment policy. We'll be getting rid of all the DEI. We won't be recruiting necessarily because you're a woman, because you're gay, because you're black, because you're Asian, because you're Muslim. I'm going to increase the fitness tests. And if that means all we recruit are white, straight, single men, I'm happy with that.
Because that's a meritocracy. That's
That's
based
what,
on, yeah.
Yeah, because we've got far too many, I think, women in the police. We need bruisers. We need people tackling criminals. We don't need 4'2" women. We don't need 5'1" men. We need people. If you're being mugged by a group of lads and you see a 4'9" policewoman running towards you, you're not exactly happy, are you? But if you see a 6'6" rugby player copper running towards you, you're like, you won't be complaining about paying your taxes then.
Correct, yeah.
So we need the right people for the job. Yeah. At the moment, DEI is killing the police. Greater Manchester Police is not as bad as some other police forces. The new constable's doing okay. Yeah. But if I can take the lead off him, because he'll be in tight constraints by the mayor at the moment, if I can take his lead off him and say, we're changing this, then we're going to dramatically change Greater Manchester Police, and we'll have some immediate effects. We're going to get back to old-fashioned policing that the people want. That's how we listen to the people there. Yeah. But I'll be reducing taxes in Greater Manchester on the council tax bill. Unfortunately, we're not looking at hundreds of pounds going off because the mayor doesn't control hundreds of pounds. Yeah. He controls 50, 60, 70, 80 quid. But that I can help reduce.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the message people want to hear, isn't it? I think the majority of people want to hear that. You know, how do we stop paying for all these things we shouldn't be paying for? And speaking of which, one of the biggest things we pay for, and one of the things that I think promotes the wrong messages for society is the BBC. I think that's something where, we pay our licence fee every year, and I don't know about you, but I don't watch the BBC anymore. I don't listen to it. Yeah. I used to, and again, before COVID or before lockdowns, I watched the BBC, I listened to the Today programme, I did all that. Now I don't watch any terrestrial channels at all, basically, because every time I turn them on,
it annoys you.
It annoys me, because they're promoting the same messages on every single channel. But the BBC's worse because we pay for it, don't we?
And the BBC's worse because there's no financial incentive for them to do any better.
Yes.
We can produce this, do you know what? We get money again next year.
Yeah.
And we've got the answer for the BBC, and we thought we had a Tory party that was going to implement it, but they've lost their bottle. The licence fee needs to be scrapped over a 5-year period, and at the end of the 5 years, the BBC are told, and by that point, you need a subscription model, or you need to do what ITV do, advertisements.
Yeah.
But the licence fee, which is basically a tax, needs to go.
Yeah.
And then they will then compete under market forces. They will get rid of lots of stuff, which is fine. We've got BBC local radio everywhere. That puts out of business other people who want to start a local radio station. How do you compete against the BBC?
Yeah.
You can't compete against them.
Yeah.
Same with the BBC, the cookery website. Every recipe in the world is on their website. That's maintained by us. How does another business start competing against that when they've got no financial issues? Yeah. So there's a role for the BBC, but it should be funded by people who want to watch the BBC.
Yes.
Things have changed.
Yeah. And I think when we were younger, when I was younger, I think it was. I'm realising now it wasn't, but I used to think it was relatively objective and even-handed.
It never has, but it didn't matter because there was only 3 news outlets. So we all felt we were getting the news, and we couldn't get news from anywhere else. In that society, well, that's fine. You're being told what they want to tell you. But now that we've got multiple ways of getting news, We can't have a tax-funded propaganda machine. Now we all know it's propaganda. All news has always been propaganda, but now we know that to be true. We should have the opportunity now to choose our propaganda and not fund someone else's propaganda.
Yeah, and I think that's happening now. I mean, things like this podcast here. If you look at other podcasts, people are now speaking far more freely about things and openly about things, and it's getting out there. So if you look at something like Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson, he reaches an audience now not through conventional media, through YouTube and all the other things as well, and people want to hear that. That's why they listen to it. That's why they So I remember Joe Rogan on he's on Spotify, isn't he? I think. And one of the James, one of the singers from the '60s said he was going to leave Spotify if Joe Rogan, and so they just said, "Fine, go," because Joe Rogan has such a massive audience that they don't care.
And then that singer came back several months later.
Came back several months. Quietly came back basically, and this. If you talk about messages and that person getting the message across, I think this is the medium to do it. If that isn't closed down, because if you look at X or Twitter, that was starting to be controlled, wasn't it, by government organisations? And Elon Musk made the decision, a very brave decision, didn't he, to take that over, to stop that happening. I mean, that was a hell of a decision he made in terms of his career or whatever. But I think this person we're talking about, the person who can start to give the message in the UK, I think we'll be using that medium to come forward. Because conventional media will not publicise him at all, will they, basically? It was the same, you started to see it with Brexit, didn't you? If you watched anything on the BBC about Brexit, it was all about how crap Brexit is. And, you must vote yes, basically. It was constant, but it gives you hope, the fact that people did vote for Brexit, that despite those messages in mainstream media, we actually ended up voting for Brexit. So,
another good point was the Joe Rogan one. So up to Joe Rogan, I mean, Joe Rogan's podcast can be up to 3.5 hours conversation. People listen to them. Up to that, we were all convinced anything more than a 60-second message, people don't take in.
Yes.
And it's like, well, how long were they?
Yeah.
No, people want information. People want to hear conversations. People want to hear debates. People want to understand the nitty-gritty, the nuance of issues. Not everybody, but lots of people do. And that's what YouTube's great for, and these conversations are good for, because and that was part of the point you made to me to do this, was we need to come across as real people having real conversations and get into some of the nitty-gritty, because just a couple of like when I do GB News and Talk TV,
sound bites,
which are great. I've learnt now how to speak in 1 minute, 2 minute sound bites, because I know that for that one question I've got 2 minutes. If I'm lucky, maybe 1 minute. So I've got to say something. I can't go back, well, let's have a 45-minute conversation on that one point. It's not going to happen. But you can have it on social media and on YouTube, and it is changing the dynamics of what we do, and it's making us all realise we're not all as stupid as these people think we are.
And I think when they hear conversations like Joe Rogan, or even the one we're having now, and hear people saying something and exploring something that they've been thinking about, but haven't had the opportunity to discuss with anybody else because there's a level of fear around it. I think that's important as well. So you expressing your views now in the way you're doing them very, very clearly and articulately, people listen to that, and then they can develop that as well, can't they? Excuse me, I'm coughing.
And there's always something more you can learn. I don't just listen to the people who I agree with. I don't just see a Jordan Peterson video. I'm definitely watching that. I'm watching videos of people who I normally disagree with, because I want to know what they're saying. I want to know why they disagree. I want to know, are my opinions built on sand? Am I just always putting up a straw man to be knocked down because I think they're all woke idiots? I use the phrase woke lunacy quite a bit, and woke idiots, and maybe I shouldn't, because it simplifies it all. But sometimes you've only got a couple of seconds to make a point. But I don't think these people are natural idiots.
No.
I think it's more complicated than that. And a lot of things they say is based on something they want that I want.
Yes.
They want a better world. So do I. They don't want people discriminated against. So do I. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I want people to have a better life and be happier and be freer. And well, so do I. There's lots of things we agree on.
Yeah.
Where we disagree on, I think, is how we get there.
Yes.
They tend to want an authoritarian, you will do as you're told approach. I tend to want a more of, if we explore these subjects and we explore human nature, we will get there anyway. We'll get there more harmoniously.
Yeah. But this is interesting, isn't it? They want a better world, and they talk about diversity, equality and inclusion. What they actually end up doing is the complete opposite of that, isn't it? It's actually a very totalitarian, very restricted, very racist, very uninclusive environment they're promoting, isn't it? Based on their ideas of what that utopia are about. And you end up with this very totalitarian situation and something that's meant to be, they talk about being anti-racist, the very anti-racist things they promote are actually racist within themselves. And we come back to previous conversations about the only allowed racism now is against white people and Jewish people, and it's horrendous and it's visible as well, but it's ongoing all the time now. It's perfectly acceptable to make, I mean, the Golden Globes were on this week or last week.
It's a shame Ricky Gervais wasn't doing it.
Yeah, so, but apparently the guy who tried to emulate Ricky Gervais was making lots of anti-white racist comments, so I've not seen it, but I've heard this basically. Trying to be funny, trying to be controversial, but there was no outcry about it because
it's acceptable.
It's acceptable. It's acceptable to be racist against white people now, and I think that kind of totalitarian approach that it develops the DEI thing is very problematic.
They don't see their flaws.
Yes.
Now, as a species, we're all capable of evil, even me and you.
Yeah.
We're all at some level racist, meaning we have a preference for in-group choice. And that goes all the way down to if there was a fire in a house and me and your daughter are unconscious lying on the floor right next to each other and you only could drag one person out, we all know who you would drag out.
Yeah.
Because in-choice preference.
That's not you, Nick.
Yeah, I knew that. You were, no, I've got to get the mayor. No.
I've got to get the mayoral candidate out.
Because that's an in-choice preference. So we all make those choices in our lives all the time at lots and lots of different levels. Where racism is a problem for me is when that goes into organisations and that goes into the lack of opportunities. So if I don't want to be your friend because you're black or you're gay, it's my right not to be your friend because you're black or gay. Because I might not like black people or gay people for whatever crazy reason I think.
Yeah.
Because I think black people are aliens and I think black people came from lizards.
Yeah.
So if I want to be your friend, I can be your friend. But that is a form of racism because I made those choices. That's perfectly acceptable. What isn't acceptable is if I'm running a business and I say, no black people allowed, no gay people allowed.
Yeah.
Or I run a service, you're not allowed to buy this ice cream off me, mate, because you're Indian.
Yeah.
That's where the problem lies, not on how you feel and what you think and how you live your life.
Correct. And I think the problem is now people are expecting, if I say to you I don't like black people, you say I'm going to call the police. Yeah. Now, you're right. I'm perfectly entitled to say I don't like black people. I don't like gays. I don't like trans or whatever. I'm perfectly entitled. As long as I'm not breaking the law, I can do that. And this is a very interesting point because this is where it's all broken down because now you're not allowed to say those things. You're not allowed to say things or think things that don't fit.
Thought crimes.
It's thought crime. And we come all the way around to the hate crime legislation, don't we?
Yeah.
And the hate crime legislation was brought in for, I think, very good reasons. And it came out of Stephen Lawrence, didn't it? The murder of Stephen Lawrence, the hate crime.
It before that,
it was coming. Stephen Lawrence
time.
precipitated the thing. But the hate crimes have been bastardised into something now. And we go back to the man in Wolverhampton. The police won't come round if he's burgled, but they'll come round if somebody hears somebody in a pub he says that I don't like black people. The police will come round. It's now been bastardised into this awful thing where people are afraid to say things now because they're afraid actually they may be actually arrested or warned as a result of it. And I think that's compounding this thing about people not wanting to say things. It's not just the fact they're having the DEI courses at work. They also know that if you say something in a pub now, so our friend Rob the American, he said something in a pub about, was it about, I don't know what it was actually, I think it might have been about a trans thing.
No, it was about Trump and 9/11. What he was basically saying was, if 9/11 happened again, he doesn't think the country would coalesce around the flag and around Americanism.
Right, because of the changes.
Because of the change in the way they're all split up now in America. That was the conversation.
Yeah.
But because he mentioned 9/11, and if that happened again, so a group of 6 white men drinking alcohol in a pub is not really an Al-Qaeda safety net and safe net.
Oh, is that what they were called? I thought it was because he was saying something else.
No, that's
But anyway, the point is,
I remember,
the police came round.
Yeah. 2 police officers on a Saturday night to the pub and asked them questions.
Yeah. And because he was saying things.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Not swearing, not racist, no, nothing else. Because he was saying things, the police...
In a private conversation.
In a private conversation.
That was overheard.
And you know, this is 1984, isn't it? When you hear things like this, and saying things. This is part of the problem, isn't it? You can't just say, I haven't got an opinion on that, or I'm not going to. You have to conform.
Well, you saying you've not got an opinion means you're secretly a racist.
Correct. Yes.
That's what that means.
Yes. So if you say to me, Lindsay, are you a racist? I just I'm not going to answer that question.
Yeah, you're a racist, obviously. Yes. Well, that's the thing a racist would say.
But that's the point. So you have to have the approved opinion now. That's the point, isn't it? And I think the hate crime legislation has added to that as well, hasn't it? It's kind of, and it's a great opportunity for people who want to promote a particular message to deploy that in certain situations.
And it's great for incompetent policing.
Yeah, of course it is.
It keeps their numbers up. It makes them look like they're doing something and they're doing nothing. Now, I'm going to look at this when I'm there. I'm going to be creating a free speech charter for Greater Manchester. I'm going to commission a free speech union to employ some barristers, and based on existing law, because they can't just make up laws, we're going to get some barristers involved, and we're going to come up with a free speech charter so people in Greater Manchester will know what they can say and what they can't say. So when a police officer stops you in the street and says, you can't shout that, you can go, let me just Google the mayor's website for you a minute. Charter, there we go. The mayor's your boss. That's what it says, so I can say that. Because a lot of this is enforced through fear and through a lack of knowledge of the law. So police officers who tell you can't say that, they're guessing.
Yeah.
They don't know. They're just guessing.
Yeah.
And because they're an authority figure, most people go, oh right, he must know the law. He doesn't. I work with police officers. None of them know the law.
Yeah.
They know 3 pieces of law. That's all you need to know. And you can arrest anybody for anything. 3 pieces of law. But if we can get the general public knowing this and they start pushing back the police, pushing back at work, so when your boss says this is a mandatory white supremacy training course, you can go, no, the mayor says this on his website.
Yeah.
And your boss will go, all right, the mayor say that? Well, I'm just guessing if I'm right, but the mayor must be right. We start challenging these people who don't know anything, and we start giving the people of Greater Manchester and the rest of the country the confidence to challenge it, because they know it's been looked into, it's user-friendly, this charter, and it's on the website, endorsed by an elected mayor of Greater Manchester, and then other places will adopt that, I would imagine, and then we can start pushing back. Individuals need to push back. We can't keep living in fear, because that just turns people into cowards. And who likes cowards? The authoritarians like cowards.
Yeah. And speaking of free speech and people who are prepared to speak, something quite interesting happened last week on Netflix. There were 2 comedy specials that came out.
I watched the Ricky one. I've not watched the
one was
Chappelle
Ricky
one
Gervais and one was Dave Chappelle. Now, what's interesting about those 2 comedians, and I don't know why this has happened, I'd be interested in your opinion. Dave Chappelle in his last comedy special started referencing around trans people and issue, and basically I think I can't remember now, but I think it was about the inequality of a male, a former male trans person competing in women's sports. And Ricky Gervais, if you saw his original, and it was just, I mean, he wasn't holding any punches. He referred to the new women, having cocks and balls and things like that. So it was kind of really, there was no quarter given. Yeah. So both those characters, they did their previous comment, and I actually think Dave Chappelle's career has actually improved as a result of his
Yeah.
first. There's no doubt about it. His profile is much higher.
He was only Americanised before that. Only really Americans had heard of him.
Yeah,
but
correct.
No one else
But now
had.
everybody, and I think Douglas Murray, who is a very, quite. He actually said I was watching an interview. He said that Dave Chappelle, I think, he's one of the best comedians on the planet. I'm not sure that's the case. I don't think he's that funny, but his profile has improved dramatically as a result of not derogatory comments about trans people, but very clear observations about some of the inequalities are relating to
Saying things he shouldn't be saying.
saying things he shouldn't be saying. And Ricky Gervais has done the same. And their new comedy specials have come out. I think Dave Chappelle has made makes a trans joke very early on.
Yeah.
I don't know if Gervais has made one in this particular one, but he's gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
But he is very kind of, he does say things that you shouldn't be saying. So those characters, and I'll also add to that list J.K. Rowling, who has been very vocal about women's rights around men taking women's spaces, basically men, So why are those people getting away with it? Why does Ricky Gervais, why does Dave Chappelle, I know J.K. Rowling to some extent hasn't got away with it because she's had a lot of vitriol and even though she's never said anything transphobic to my knowledge ever. Why are we seeing glimpses of that kind of, because anybody else in the comedy circuit, if they made a joke about trans, would end up being cancelled or whatever.
It depends how big you are. So Ricky Gervais and Chappelle are basically too big to cancel.
Yeah.
Too big, too popular, both of them multi-millionaires, so they're not looking to earn, they want more money, everyone wants more money, but they're not like, oh, I might lose my house if I lose this gig. No, they're multi-millionaires, so they can say what they want. They've tried to cancel them. There were staff in Netflix who protested the board in Netflix about Ricky Gervais and Chappelle. And Netflix, I believe, so there's not 100%, but I believe Netflix don't have an HR department. Their HR department is a bunch of lawyers who say, right, you've got problems, it's not working out, and we're going to pay you 6 months to leave.
Yeah.
That's their HR department. Is they don't mess around.
Yeah.
And they've realised, even though they also make a lot of woke crap as well.
Yeah.
They're in this for the money. They know them.
Yes.
Those two comedians will bring in a lot of money for Netflix.
Correct. They're number 1 and 2, aren't they?
And the woke crap will get other people bringing money in. We're just there for business.
Yeah.
We don't care if you like it or not, as long as some people like it and brings money in. J.K. Rowling's a little bit different. J.K. Rowling is seen as one of them. She was on our side. Feminist, left-leaning, giving money to left-wing causes.
Yes, she was. I think she supported Jeremy Corbyn, didn't she? Yeah.
All of a sudden, she's not on our side anymore. She's a heretic. She's worse than that. She's an apostate.
Yes.
And what do we do with apostates? We kill apostate. She's now left our religion.
Yes.
We need to kill her. It's not because she's a woman they've gone after that hard. It's because she was one of them. And you always go after one of yours harder, because if you don't, other people might leave your cause and leave your religion. You've got to show everybody in your religion, this is what happens.
This happens when you step out of line.
This happens when you step out of line, and we're going to go, so that's why. And her trans comments are not even trans comments.
No, they're not.
They're the most benign, common sense, factual, kind-hearted articles about the issues women are facing because of some men are pretending to be women. She's not like Ricky Gervais, who just goes bang, which you can you watch these jokes and go, God, that's quite insulting. She's the opposite of that, but it's because she's an apostate. That's why they go after her.
Yes, but she hasn't been cancelled.
Too big to cancel.
And people are carrying on buying her books.
Too big to cancel, yeah. She would have been cancelled.
Yeah.
I spoke to a children's author that the Free Speech Union are working with. I forget her name now. And she got cancelled because she retweeted one of J.K. Rowling's tweets. The American publishers got complaints about this English author, children's author, and they sacked her.
Yeah.
She wasn't too big to be cancelled because she was a nobody.
I think you made a very good point before. You were talking about something and you were saying that something happened, and as a result, I know what you're talking about. We were talking about the chap who got sacked by Lloyd's. You were saying the corporations will see things like that and react to that. And again, that's about money, isn't it? We've got to be careful now. So we can't, the tide must be turning a little bit. So we need to be a bit more careful now.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening, again, it's interesting just talking about the DEI thing. In America now, there's a lot of activist investors who are going into the businesses and saying, you're wasting too much time on, I think it's happening with Unilever. You know, Unilever, so the new boss of Unilever is saying, we're forgetting all this DEI crap and stuff like that. We're going to focus on promoting our brands and our products, not promoting causes that have nothing to do with the stuff we're trying to sell. So I think there may be a shift happening. There may be something happening.
The shift is definitely happening, and that's because of their board meetings, and when they've got their investor meetings, they're looking at the bottom line.
Yes.
And they're going, oh, we've not done as well as last year. Why? Oh, well, we're spending 20% of our time now on green issues and woke. I don't care. I don't care. I want that to dramatically increase next year. Otherwise, at the next annual general meeting, we'll be voting for a new chief exec. That's what we'll be doing.
Yeah.
And they'll be getting those messages coming through when their stock prices are dropping. And don't forget, a lot of these CEOs and top managers all own stock shares in these companies.
Yes.
So when those shares start dropping in value, they're also going, I've got skin in the game now.
Yeah.
I've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
This was great for 2 decades when it made us look pink and fluffy and no one cared and it didn't affect our bottom line. But now it's beginning to, and now our reputation's being damaged slightly. Oh no, I'm not as green as I thought I was. I'm not as pink as I thought I was.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It's about putting the incentives where we want the incentives, because as humans, we answer to incentives. It makes us do things. And it's usually finances, and if we can affect their finances, people will do as they're told. Same with politicians. What do they want? Votes. How do you get them to change? You make sure they want your vote to get elected.
And we'll end on that, Nick. If you could give your vote to Nick at the mayoral election,
Yes, please.
that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much, Nick.
Cheers.
Thank you.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.